Question number 6, Phil Twyford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question's for the Minister of Social Housing. What is the exciting and sexy stuff she has been considering for social housing?
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Paula Bennett.
Mr. Speaker, in my desire to liven up an interview on Radio New Zealand, I may have talked up the sexy stuff a little too much. I'm not sure it is sexy, but I am sure it's exciting. My statement this morning was around community housing providers and how they can partner with government and with developers, with other NGOs and with those in the private sector. Mr. Speaker, that is exciting, how it can get to the stage of helping vulnerable New Zealanders, being more New Zealanders housed in better quality homes and that suit their needs far better.
Order.
Supplementary, Mr.
Supplementary question, Phil Twyford.
Would it be exciting and sexy stuff to sell off a third of the social housing stock without building any replacement housing? And how exciting and sexy will that be for the 5,500 poor families on the waiting list and living in cars, garages and caravans?
Speaker.
Order. Honourable Paula Bennett.
Mr. Speaker, this is very much about vulnerable New Zealanders that need assistance to be in warm, safe houses. And what we have seen to date is actually poor quality state houses and the wrong size in the wrong place. And that ain't working for those New Zealanders that need it most. We will house more people in social housing. We just may not necessarily own all of those homes. It'll be better for the people, not necessarily better for government.
Supplementary question, Phil Twyford.
When she said that every day it gets better, was she referring to the plight of families bringing up their kids in poverty and forced to live in caravans, or was she referring to the routine denigration of poor people on her 6-year watch once she'd pulled up the ladder?
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Paula Bennett.
Yeah, well, no one was listening to you for the last 3 months and they ain't listening to you now, Phil. So the reality is, I was talking about...
Order. It's not appropriate to attack the member who's asked the question at the start of the question if the Minister would simply ask the question that's been asked.
Mr. Speaker, I was talking about the 100 and...
Point of order, right, Honourable Winston.
She was attacking, of all people, you. She referred to you twice.
Order. If I could just take this opportunity of assisting the member. When the word you is used, it's inappropriate, but it's for the Speaker alone to decide, and that was reviewed in standing orders in the previous Parliament. So I'd be grateful if all members would not use that as an excuse to interrupt debate or question time. Honourable Paula Bennett.
Mr. Speaker, I was talking about the 127 people that were housed just last week, including 10 with a community housing provider. I was talking about those people that are getting access to better services through work and income, because that means that their assessments are more thorough, they've got better options than just a state house, and we're putting more money in to make sure more people get the assistance they need.
Supplementary question, Phil Twyford.
Has she spoken to the Member of Parliament who formerly represented the area that includes the Ranui campground? And if so, did she tell her that her department had been routinely referring people to live there in caravans, and that she has only been a minister for 6 years and doing exciting and sexy stuff takes a lot longer than that?
You do? Well, it's quite exciting.
Honourable Paula Bennett.
We are the first ones that took that Ranui caravan park seriously, have been in there, have been critical of the services and how they provide them. We have not been referring them to it. We actually have work that is underway now. We are serious about doing things differently.
Order.
The same old stuff won't work, so we need to work with community housing providers. We need to put people first. While that member counts houses, we count people and care about them being in the right house with the right services and the right wraparound.
Mr. Speaker.
Order. Point of order, Phil Twyford.
Mr Speaker, I seek leave to table Housing New Zealand's emergency housing provider list, which contains dozens of campgrounds and caravan parks.
Order, I just need the source of the document.
Housing New Zealand.
From what, a website?
No, I'm not sure if it's on the website, sir. It's a hard copy document.
Order.
It's not readily available, sir.
Order. I'll accept the member's word that it's not readily available. On that basis, I will put the leave to table that document. Is there any objection to being tabled? There is none. It can be. Supplementary question, Phil Twyford.
How does she reconcile her comment that poor families living in caravans are not there by choice with earlier comments that some homeless people are making a lifestyle choice? Or did she miss the advice that looking arrogant and conceited about poverty is not a good look for third-term ministers?
It's all right.
Honourable Paula
look,
Bennett.
The angrier you get with me, the better my career seems to go, so that's fine. Hey, what I will say is that I visited that caravan park, and what I said was I do not think that it is the right place for particularly families to be and for children to be growing up. That is not where we want them to be. But what I will say is there are some people who choose to live there and enjoy living there, and I will see that as their choice. But I don't think that families and children in particular should be there.
Order. Supplementary question, Phil Twyford.
Do homeless families in West Auckland need exciting and sexy stuff? Or do they simply need a government that invests in enough emergency accommodation for homeless people? And why doesn't she just use some of the 520 empty state houses in Auckland?
That's right. Speaker.
Honourable Paula Bennett.
Well, we are actually housing more people in state houses and faster turnaround than we certainly just about ever have done. We're down to 28 days between tenancies. And you've asked the question, I'm just giving you your answer. We care about people. I know the member wants to count houses. We want to make sure that people have the quality housing that they can get, that it will actually mean that we are addressing some of those children in hardship. That is our priority, and that is what we're working on.
Order. Order.
Mr Speaker.
Point of order, Sue Moroni.
Mr Speaker, I just want to raise an issue that I think occurred yesterday as well with the Minister who just gave a very rude hand gesture to me across the House. It's been reported to me that she did it on 2 occasions yesterday during question time, and I think it's going to really disrupt the order of the House if that continues from the Honourable Paula Bennett.
Order. I'll allow the member.
I certainly did not do a rude gesture at all to that member, and if she takes offence to that, then there's something seriously wrong with you.
Order. Order. In regard to the point that's raised, order. In regard to the point that's been raised by Sue Moroni, the member's word has been given and it will be taken. But I've got to say that throughout the questions that were asked by Mr Twyford, he and people sitting right next to him continued to give a barrage of interjection right through the answers that made it very difficult for me to hear the answer, and I think would have made it near impossible for the members asking the question to hear the answer. Question number 7, Scott Simpson.